in the mainstream media, in the conservative movement. Everybody wants to know, and everybody's wondering, why is the Groyper movement and America First so popular? Why is it so ascendant? Because for a lot of people, it feels like it came out of nowhere. It feels like all of this happened suddenly, overnight. Everybody was busy doing one thing, and then all of a sudden, the Groypers were banging on the door, and it seemed like this was this overnight success. And so people have speculated. They say, well, it has to do with the material conditions in the country. They say it's because the younger generation is frustrated and angry and anxious and depressed because of the economic conditions. They say it is because of politics, because the left wing has bullied young people, specifically the males and the white males. And so this is their frustrated reaction to being attacked for so long. They've become spiteful, resentful, angry, and this is an expression of, this is their reaction against those things. And I've tried to say it as plainly as possible throughout the year. You can point to a few very specific things. What created the phenomenon this year of this show, America First, the Groypers? You can actually pinpoint a few specific things. And it's not complicated. I don't even think it's contentious. I don't think it's debatable. I think it's very clear and very obvious what happened. And starting with number one, the number one thing which accounted for all this success this year. Why did the show blow up so much this year? The number one thing, which nobody will even mention, and nobody has mentioned, is that this is the first year that they simply stopped censoring me. That's it. It's that simple. Because for those that don't know me or don't know a lot about me, you might have heard, for many years, I was the most censored, canceled person in the country. And I don't say that to make myself a victim. I don't say that to be a martyr. It is just a fact that for years, I was completely censored, completely blacklisted, blackballed, and everything that entails. And that went into overdrive in 2021 after January 6th. In 2021, I was banned on everything. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, DLive, Twitter, TikTok. I was banned on every major social platform, but I was doubly banned because I was also banned from appearing on anybody else's show. So if I went on Sneako's show, or if I went on Fresh and Fit, or if I went on any other show, YouTube would delete that show also. If I went on someone else's TikTok, or if I was on someone else's Instagram account, they were also banned. And it was like this for 4 years. So go figure. Why did I not gain a lot of traction in 21, 22, 23, 24? Because I literally didn't have a platform. I was banned from everything. The only platform that I could even live stream my show on was the platform that I made myself. Because that was the only streaming platform I was allowed on. It was called Cozy TV. I had been banned from YouTube, DLive, Trovo, things you had never even heard of. And what happened this year is there were a few specific decisions that were made. Number one, I was unbanned on Twitter last May. So this is the first full year that I have been allowed on Twitter since 2021. That's one. Two, I was allowed on Rumble. And all of a sudden, I got a check mark on Rumble. I was allowed to stream on Rumble. I just, in the past couple of months, was allowed to get super chats on Rumble. I was allowed to stream on a major platform. Three, and this is maybe the biggest one, Instagram stopped deleting my clips. And this is something that we noticed. This is like a switch was flipped, I think in like January. All of a sudden, you were able to post my clips on Instagram without being banned. And they were able to get millions of views, hundreds of thousands of views. That was never the case. It used to be the case that if you posted any clip from my show, your whole channel would get deleted. All of a sudden, starting this year, you're able to post the clip without it getting taken down. And then the last thing that happened, kind of like the last shoe to drop, was around May of this year, I was able to start appearing as a guest on YouTube. This is something else where even in 2024, Candace Owens wouldn't bring me on her show because she was worried that if I was even a guest, that the whole YouTube channel would get deleted. And in May, for the first time, I think I did the Hodge twins, and then I did the Social Hour with Sean. All of a sudden, again, I was on a YouTube show, and the YouTube channel was not banned. The video was not taken down. I don't know if it was even demonetized. But I did those two shows. They were...
Hey man, shout out to the Hodge twins, by the way, for being the first ones to try and take that risk. But that is honestly crazy. And it goes to show something very important. Last year, right when Trump won, Mark Zuckerberg released a video talking about dialing back censorship. He framed it as a response to the, and listen to this, the changing culture in America toward more free speech and listening to the people. I highly doubt that's the reality though. There's no way it's a coincidence that Meta, YouTube, and other platforms moved to ban figures like Nick. Right as Joe Biden came into office, they banned all these guys. And then suddenly started talking about easing censorship only once the Republicans won again. That change in policy was only because these big tech companies, they knew they couldn't get away with it anymore. And this is a good reminder of why the First and Second Amendments are the core of a free America, and they almost took one away from us. That's something we need to recognize big time.
Taken down, and that reflected a decision that was made at YouTube that they were no longer going to censor me from being on shows. And so I think that changes the perspective on where I came from this year and what all happened, because a lot of people said, oh, it's things that are happening this year. It's because everybody got really hateful. It's because of this, that, or the other. No, it is because for 10 years, we did not have a level playing field at all. And think about this. Think about it. For 10 years, it was a completely gate-kept, closed system. And by that, I mean the conservative politics, the conservative political media ecosystem, it was an oligopoly. It was a closed system. There were a handful of personalities and companies that were chosen, they were selected, and they were immune from censorship and shadow banning and all of it. And it was people like Charlie Kirk at Turning Point. It was Ben Shapiro at Daily Wire. It was Prager University. It's all these familiar people. Everybody else got banned, going back even further, going back to like 2016. People like Gavin McInnes, Alex Jones, they were unpersoned. They were banned from everything. They were gone. They never stood a chance. People like Sam Hyde lost his TV show, then got banned on everything. It was impossible to compete because we could not take, and I include myself in that also, we could not bring our product to the marketplace. If the product is the content or the show, we were not able even to play in the same ballpark. We weren't even able to play in the league. And so for the same amount of time that these other groups were the number 2 ad buyer on Facebook, they were number 1 podcast for conservatives on YouTube, they had a deal with TikTok in the 2024 election to get their content amplified and promoted, whereas they were being promoted and steadily accumulating and growing and building, making a living, building a subscriber base, building an audience. All the rest of us were out there dying, losing momentum, losing subscribers, losing money because we were banned.
And mind you, none of those guys even tried to help these guys. None of them spoke up for any of these people that were banned, hardly ever. And not only that, but some of them even took it a step further. For example, TPUSA. They actually went and banned Nick themselves from coming to their events. That's crazy. We already have mass right-wing censorship from the main social medias and the main medias, and then you have right-wing political activists and figures also banning other right-wing political activists and figures.
And it's not a coincidence that this is the first year that everything opened up, and then all of a sudden, guess what becomes popular? Lo and behold, after 10 years of censorship, blacklisting, cancel culture, all of that, finally it starts to recede a little bit. Finally, they start to open it up, and all of a sudden, the number one shows, it's like Tucker, Candace, Nick Fuentes. Surprise, surprise. When you stop censoring the conversation, people have an appetite for white identity, criticism of Jews in Israel, criticism of feminism. Guys like Andrew Tate become the most famous people in the world. So that's number one. Where did the generational come from? Well, they stopped suppressing me for a short amount of time. For roughly half of this year, I had no obstacles on that front, and I became massive. Number two, and this is the other thing that nobody ever talks about. Where did the generational run come from? Number two. Again, a lot of people say, well, he's expressing a popular discontent, but here's where he gets it wrong. Well, he's expressing this popular anger, this, that, or the other. The generational run really got off the ground roughly around May and June. And why is it around May or June that this show started to gain a lot of traction? It was because of a very specific news story. It wasn't a particular collaboration. It wasn't a particular interview. Up until the middle of this year, I didn't get a major interview. I had some good interviews. I'm not knocking them, but I didn't get really a massive mainstream interview until later into the summer. But I had my biggest show to date at that point in June, having not had any major mainstream collaborations. Nobody put me on. Nobody had me on a massive show. The biggest show that I had to date in the middle of the year was during the Israel-Iran war. My biggest show to date this year was when Israel bombed Iran and started the war. And then my biggest show to date after that, which was even bigger, was the night that the United States bombed Iran. Why do you think that is? It's because in 2024, I was well known as being one of the only people that didn't vote for Trump. And I didn't vote for Trump because I predicted he would bring us to war with Iran. And I had been predicting for years that it would play out in exactly that way. Ever since October 7th, I had predicted that Trump would be elected because he is the pro-Israel candidate. And he would be elected in part because he would take us to war with Iran in fulfillment of Israel's multi-year, multi-front, regional ambitions to create a greater Israel and neutralize all their enemies. And so when Israel bombed Iran and the United States followed up with airstrikes of its own, people ran to watch the show to see what I had to say about it because I was the only one that predicted it. So I didn't launch the generational run because I was being a shock jock, because I was trolling, because I played this shell game where I pretend to be mainstream and I go on Bradley Martin and I act one way and then I go on my show and act like a jerk. The generational run started because I was right, because I was speaking the truth about Jews in Israel, but also their relationship with Trump. And I was the only one who did it. I was the only one that stuck it out and said that, even in 2024, which is pretty late in the game for someone like me. Pretty late in the game, actually, for everybody. Just when everybody thought they had it all figured out about Israel, about Trump and the Republicans versus the Democrats, just when everybody thought they had it all figured out, I threw a big curveball and said, there's something that people are missing, which is that Trump is being allowed to walk through into the halls of power because they know that he will scuttle any diplomacy with Iran. That'll be their opportunity to carry out these strikes. And that's exactly what happened. And it was thanks to my analysis, which was precise and specific and accurate, which is where the whole thing started. And then once people watched the show, they said, wow, okay, so this guy isn't just some hateful maniac. He actually knows what he's talking about. We're actually learning information. We're actually getting good analysis. And it's not just a crackpot conspiracy theory. It's based in reality.
And that's the reality of it. People just need to be able to hear us. They can't compete on a level playing field, which is exactly why they need to ban us. We need to make sure we never give up our First and Second Amendments, because the day we do is honestly the day our country dies as we know it. I honestly do believe that. Anyways, guys, that's it for the video. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to help us keep getting the message out there. I'm gonna see you in the next one.